I'm joined now by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, a Democrat. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for being here. I know you oppose President Trump's new executive orders on immigration and refugee policy. I want to ask you about the implementation of those executive actions. It seems like it was fairly chaotic at JFK and other airports. Was there any guidance given by the Trump administration about this new policy to people like you or the people who run your airports and how it was to be carried out?
No, Jake, there was no guidance, and obviously there wasn't even clear guidance to federal officials around the country, and that's why there's so much confusion here. But let's be clear. President Trump's executive order is simply un-American. It is suggesting that people's civil liberties can be taken away even if they're green card holders, even if they're permanent residents on the pathway to citizenship. I've read this executive order. It makes no distinction if someone has a green card and is already recognized on the pathway to citizenship. It makes no distinction if you've served in the U.S. military previously. You still could be detained. In this country, the notion of detention without due process, without probable cause or a charge against you, violates our constitutional norms. So I think today a lot of Republicans and independents are looking at this with a great deal of concern. Anyone who considers themselves a libertarian should be deeply concerned to see our government detaining people for no apparent reason and denying them their rights. And look, this is a city with 800,000 people who are permanent residents of the United States of America. This sends a horrible message to them that for no reason whatsoever they could be detained or even sent back to their home country, even though they're now part of the life of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, how many people are still being detained right now at New York City airports? Do you know?
Jake, we're trying to get a clear picture of that. There certainly do still appear to be people detained, even though Judge Donnelly's action, her decision last night was quite clear that the action by the president was stayed and people should not be detained. We're still not clear that the Trump administration has honored that decision by a federal judge.
Now, there have been times in the nation's history when detainees or refugees, I'm sorry, not detainees, when refugees or immigrants from a specific country were put on hold, were suspended. Barack Obama did it with Iraqis for 6 months. Jimmy Carter did it with Iranians during that hostage crisis. How is this different?
Well, I don't know the details of those orders, but I can tell you this much. You've got 7 nations that are included with no criteria whatsoever. Again, someone may be already a permanent resident of the United States. They may have served in our military. It doesn't matter. According to this executive order, they could be detained. They could be sent back for no reason, no clear, specific reason. And on top of that, look at the point in this executive order on religion. This should be chilling to anyone in America who cares about religious liberty. There is an exception made, a potential for the exception made for anyone who is not Muslim. There are no exceptions allowed for someone who is Muslim. That goes against our constitutional values as well. If the executive order said, here are a list of things that might be considered exceptions and we'll weigh those, great. But the only category where it allows for people to be considered for entry is if they are non-Muslim.
Well, to be clear, what the executive order says is it provides for a prioritization if people are of a religious minority in these countries, and obviously they are a majority Muslim countries, but theoretically, we don't know how it's going to be implemented. Theoretically, that could be a Sufi Muslim could be considered a religious minority, a Shia Muslim could be considered a religious minority, no?
Well, Jake, I understand that point, but I would be careful on that. The notion that there's not a pattern of exception for individuals, that the only indication suggests bluntly non-Muslims, should be very, very worrisome here. Look, a lot of people are worried this is the first step towards a Muslim registry, which again would be un-American and unacceptable. If this was consistent, I think, with past practice and said, here are a list of people we're obviously going to look at for exceptions, medical professionals and folks who work for major corporations who are coming here to do work and people who served in our military, that would be one thing. But the indication here is it certainly leans against people who come from the Muslim majority in those nations, does not allow any clear indication of someone who is a law-abiding Muslim coming here for a good reason to have the right to entry. That's, again, anyone who cares about civil liberties. And this is a statement, this is absolutely a bipartisan statement, because I know there are a lot of Republicans and independents who care deeply about our Constitution, our civil liberties. They should be very worried right now. And I'm impressed and appreciative that 3 Republican senators have stepped up. I think a lot more Republicans should be speaking out right now.
Also part of President Trump's new national order on immigration policy, let's turn to New York's status as a sanctuary city, because President Trump signed a different executive order this week saying that he would halt funding 2 municipalities across the country that do not cooperate with federal immigration officials and enforce federal immigration law. You've threatened to sue in response to the order. I guess the question is, if your lawsuit fails, would New York City be willing to give up tens of millions of dollars in federal funding in order to maintain its status as a sanctuary city?
A couple of quick points. The sanctuary city definition has been often misunderstood. It's simple. Number one reason we have a different approach to immigrants in this city. We have 500,000 people here who are undocumented, and our police department has felt for decades that it must have a working relationship with those folks, and if they feel that by talking to a police officer could lead to the information being shared with the federal government and deportation, people are not going to work with police. This is a policy that goes back to Rudy Giuliani and Ed Koch, 20, 30 years back. We believe it's the best way to keep our city safe. We're the safest big city in America. And we've been working with our immigrant communities to make ourselves safe. We also believe the executive order is very vague and filled with contradiction and legally challengeable. So, Jake, rule one, we're going at this. If there is an attempt to implement, of course there has not been an attempt to implement yet, we will go to court to have it stayed, just like this more recent executive order was stayed. The specific funding that would be cut, here's the irony, Jake, the specific funding would be cut would be from Homeland Security and Justice. That's for the NYPD to fight terrorism. So what President Trump is saying is he's going to take away anti-terrorism dollars from New York City, the #1 terror target in America, while alienating our police from our immigrant communities, making us less safe overall. We're not going to stand for that.
Under a new sanctuary city law that you approved in October 2014, the city of New York shields from the feds undocumented immigrants who commit what are deemed to be lesser offenses, but they include drunk driving and grand larceny. Why shouldn't the city of New York comply with federal law in this area? If you're a drunk driver and you're an undocumented immigrant, why should there be a place for you in this country?
Jake, there are 170 offenses in that law that are listed as serious and violent crimes that lead to automatic cooperation between the city of New York and our federal partners. So any serious and violent crime, we're going to work with them. Someone commits a minor offense. For example, right now, if you didn't have clear definitions like we have, let's say someone had a small amount of marijuana, let's say someone went through a stop sign, they could be deported for that, and their family could be torn apart, and you could have children left behind where the breadwinner in the family is sent back to a home country. That is not good for anyone. So we differentiate. Anyone who's violent, anyone who's a serious threat to society, we agree, we'll work with the federal partners, and they get deported. But we are not going to see, with 500,000 undocumented people here, and this would be true for 11 to 12 million undocumented folks in this country, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding, we're not going to see families torn apart over a very minor offense.
But is grand larceny or drunk driving a very minor offense?
Drunk driving that does not lead to any other negative outcome, I could define it as that. But look at the list of 170 offenses, anything involving a weapon, anything involving violence. Those are the areas where we're absolutely cooperating. And that, I think, could be a good model, Jake, for how we proceed as a nation. Anyone who does a serious crime, I agree, they shouldn't be here. But the vast majority of people don't commit any crime, and some, like so much of our population, do some small offense. That's not a reason to tear apart a family. That's not going to do any good. And listen, if, again, think about this, 11 to 12 million Americans, if they start feeling like they cannot talk to a police officer, cannot say if they've been a victim of a crime, they can't go to a police officer to tell them they witnessed a crime, they can't talk to people at a public hospital or a school for fear of deportation, that's going to be corrosive in communities all across the country. It's actually going to make us less safe day to day in our communities. That's why it's taking us in the wrong direction.
All right, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, thank you for coming on the show as always, sir.
You're
Appreciate
welcome,
it.
Jake.